One thing I've learned over the years is that many people focus so much on buying good chicks that they forget where those chicks are actually going to live. They'll spend weeks comparing breeds, looking for the best hatchery, asking about feed, and calculating profits. Then, when it's time to build the poultry house, they simply put up any structure they can afford and hope for the best. Unfortunately, that's where many problems begin. A poorly designed poultry house can affect your birds every single day. It can make the house too hot, too cold, too damp, or poorly ventilated. The birds become stressed, diseases spread more easily, feed conversion becomes poor, and before long the farmer starts wondering what went wrong. The funny thing is that many of those problems didn't start with the birds. They started with the building. Now when people hear the words poultry house, they often imagine those huge commercial farms with long modern buildings, automatic feeders, cooling systems, and thousands of birds. The truth is, you don't need all of that to start a successful poultry farm. Some of the best managed farms I've visited have very simple poultry houses. They aren't expensive, but they were built properly. The birds have enough space, there's good airflow, the litter stays dry, and management is easy. That's what we're aiming for. Before we even talk about dimensions or roofing materials, let's first talk about the type of poultry house. There are two main housing systems used in commercial poultry farming. The first one is the deep litter system, and the second one is the cage system. Let's start with deep litter because that's where most beginners should begin. In a deep litter system, the birds live on the floor inside the poultry house. Before the birds arrive, you spread a layer of litter material on the floor. Depending on what's available in your area, that could be wood shavings, rice husks, coffee husks, chopped straw, or another suitable material. The birds eat, drink, walk around, and spend their entire production cycle on that litter. If you're raising broilers, they'll remain on that floor until they're ready for market. If you're raising layers, they'll stay there throughout the laying period, and you'll provide nest boxes where they can lay eggs. The deep litter system is popular for one simple reason. It's affordable. You don't need expensive housing equipment to get started, and it's much easier for a beginner to manage. It also allows you to observe your birds closely. You'll quickly notice whether they're active, eating well, drinking enough water, or showing signs that something isn't right. As a beginner, that's a big advantage because you're still learning how chickens behave. The second housing system is the cage system. Instead of moving freely on the floor, the birds are housed inside cages that are arranged in rows. Feed and water are supplied directly to the cages, and eggs roll out for easy collection if you're keeping layers. One of the biggest advantages of cages is that you can keep more birds in the same building. Management is also easier in some areas because egg collection, feeding, and cleaning are more efficient. The downside is the cost. Installing cages requires a much bigger investment than a deep litter house. The building itself often needs to be stronger, and the equipment adds significantly to the startup cost. For someone who's just entering poultry farming, that can be a major financial burden. Personally, if someone asks me which system I recommend for a first poultry farm, I usually say deep litter. Not because cages are bad, they're not. Many successful commercial farms use cages very effectively. But if you're just starting, deep litter gives you a chance to learn poultry management without spending a huge amount of money on equipment. Later, if your business grows and cages make financial sense for your operation, you can always make that investment. Now, regardless of which housing system you choose, the next decision is just as important. Where are you going to build the poultry house? Now let's talk about where you're going to build the poultry house. This is one of those decisions that people don't think about too much in the beginning, but it can either make your work easier for years or create problems that you'll keep dealing with every single day. The first thing I always tell people is don't just build on the first empty piece of land you have. Take a little bit of time and look around your property. After it rains, where does the water go? Are there places where water collects and stays there for a day or two? If there are, avoid those areas. You don't want your poultry house sitting in a place that's constantly wet, because sooner or later that moisture finds its way into the house. Wet litter becomes a problem, flies become a problem, and diseases become easier to manage, or rather, harder to manage. If you have a slightly raised area where water naturally drains away, that's usually a much better place to build. The second thing is water. People normally think about feed first, but water is just as important. Your birds will drink every single day. If you're constantly carrying water long distances because the poultry house is too far from the water source, you'll eventually get tired of doing it. And remember, as your flock grows, the amount of water they consume also increases. So if you have the option, build somewhere that's close to a reliable water supply. Now let's talk about access. Think about everything that's going to happen once the farm is operating. You'll be bringing in chicks, you'll be bringing in feed, you'll be removing manure. If you're keeping layers, you'll be carrying trays of eggs almost every day. If you're raising broilers, buyers or transport vehicles will eventually come to collect the birds. All those activities become much easier if the poultry house is easy to reach. I've seen farms where someone built a poultry house at the very back of the property because that's where there was space. Every bag of feed had to be carried a long distance. Every tray of eggs had to be carried back the same distance. It may not seem like a big issue on the first day, but after doing it every day for several years, you begin to appreciate why choosing the right location matters. Another thing I like to think about is expansion. Most people don't stay at 100 birds forever. If the business does well, you'll probably want to add another poultry house in the future. So don't build your first house in a way that leaves no room for anything else. Leave enough space around it. Even if you don't expand next year, at least you've given yourself that option. Now let's talk about the direction of the poultry house, because this is something many beginners hear about but don't always understand. You'll often hear people say the house should face east-west. The reason isn't because east-west is some magical rule, it's because of the sun. In many tropical countries, including Uganda and much of East Africa, the afternoon sun can become extremely hot. If the longer side of the poultry house faces directly into that afternoon sun, more heat enters the building and the birds become uncomfortable. By positioning the house correctly, you reduce the amount of direct sunlight entering through the sides during the hottest part of the day. That helps keep the house cooler. Now, I should mention that orientation isn't exactly the same everywhere. If you live in an area with different weather conditions or very strong prevailing winds, you may need to adjust the design to suit your environment. So don't just copy what another farmer has done because it worked on their farm. Think about your own location. Now let's move inside the poultry house. One thing that separates a good poultry house from a poor one is ventilation. And when I say ventilation, I'm simply talking about the movement of fresh air. Chickens are constantly breathing. Their droppings produce moisture. As that litter stays on the floor, gases like ammonia begin to build up. If fresh air isn't moving through the house properly, those gases remain inside with the birds. You may not notice it immediately, but the birds do. Poor ventilation can lead to breathing problems, slower growth, poor feed conversion, and reduced egg production. Sometimes farmers think their birds are sick, when in reality the birds are simply living in poor air conditions. That's why I always say fresh air is free, but it's incredibly valuable. You don't have to buy it. You just have to design your poultry house so it can move through the building naturally. At the same time, don't confuse ventilation with strong wind. Those are two different things. Fresh air is good. Cold wind blowing directly onto the birds is not. That's especially true when you're brooding young chicks because they're very sensitive to cold drafts. So what you're trying to achieve is a poultry house where fresh air moves through continuously without making the birds uncomfortable. When you get that balance right, you'll notice the difference in how the birds perform. And that's really what good housing is all about. It's about creating an environment where the birds are comfortable enough to do what they're genetically capable of doing, whether that's growing quickly or producing lots of eggs. Now that the house is built and you've chosen a good location, the next thing is setting it up properly before the birds arrive. Before that, let me make one announcement. The Poultry Intel Manager app is now officially live on the Google Play Store for Android phones. To download it, go to the Play Store and search for Poultry Intel Manager, then download it. Alternatively, you can use the link I'll leave in the description. Go and download it, then use it to track, plan, analyze, and optimize your poultry farm, whether it is layers, broilers, dual-purpose birds, ducks, turkeys, or quail. They're all covered. It is free to download and free to use. Let's get back to the business. Once construction is complete, I like to go through the entire house and make sure everything is ready before a single bird enters. It's much easier to fix problems when the house is empty than when you've already got hundreds of chicks inside. Let's start with space. As a general guide, a deep litter house for layers usually accommodates about 6 birds per square meter, while broilers can be stocked at around 10 to 12 birds per square meter, depending on their age, the weather, and how well the house is ventilated. Those are general recommendations, not fixed rules. If you're farming in a very hot area, for example, giving the birds a little more space usually helps because heat builds up much faster when birds are crowded together. Now let's talk about equipment. The good thing is, you don't need dozens of machines before you can start poultry farming. But there are a few things you simply can't do without. The first ones are feeders and drinkers. Buy enough for the number of birds you're keeping. Sometimes people try to save money by buying fewer feeders than they actually need. What happens is exactly what you'd expect. The stronger birds eat first while the weaker ones are pushed away. Over time, that difference becomes more noticeable because some birds are eating properly, while others are always struggling to get access to feed. The same thing happens with water. Every bird should be able to drink easily without having to fight for space. Water is one thing you should never allow your birds to run out of. Feed is important, but clean drinking water is just as important. Another thing I always tell beginners is to think about where you're placing the feeders and drinkers. Don't just put everything in one corner of the house. Spread them out so birds can reach them easily from different parts of the house. As the birds grow, keep adjusting the equipment. Raise the feeders and drinkers to the correct height so birds can eat comfortably without wasting too much feed. That one small adjustment can save quite a bit of feed over an entire production cycle. If you're preparing for day-old chicks, you'll also need a reliable heat source. We'll go into much more detail in the next episode because brooding deserves an entire discussion on its own. For now, the important thing is to make sure whatever heat source you're using has already been tested before the chicks arrive. Don't wait until the delivery truck is at your gate to discover that the brooder isn't working or that the gas cylinder is empty. Test everything beforehand. Another thing that's often overlooked is litter. People sometimes think litter is just something to cover the floor. It's actually doing a very important job. Good litter absorbs moisture from droppings, keeps the birds comfortable, and helps reduce contact between the birds and the floor. Whatever material you're using, wood shavings, rice husks, coffee husks, or another suitable material, it should be clean, dry, and free from mold. Never use wet litter from the start. And if the litter becomes wet during production, don't ignore it. Wet litter quickly leads to ammonia, dirty birds, foot problems, flies, and unnecessary disease pressure. It's much easier to replace a small wet section than to wait until the entire house has become a problem. Finally, don't forget about feed storage. Keep your feed somewhere that's dry, well ventilated, and protected from rats, mice, and moisture. The goal is simple. By the time your chicks arrive, you shouldn't be running around looking for feeders, fixing drinkers, or spreading litter. Everything should already be in place. That way your full attention is on the birds from the moment they arrive, and that's exactly how it should be. Now let's talk about biosecurity. I know when people hear the word biosecurity, it sounds like something complicated or something that only applies to very large commercial farms. It isn't. Biosecurity simply means doing everything you can to prevent diseases from getting into your farm in the first place. And believe me, preventing a disease outbreak is much cheaper than trying to control one after your birds are already sick. One mistake I see quite often is someone finishing the poultry house, bringing in the chicks the next day, and assuming everything is ready. The first thing you should do before stocking the house is clean it properly. If it's a brand new house, remove all the construction debris, dust, nails, pieces of wood, or anything else that shouldn't be there. If the house has been used before, then the job is even more important. Remove all the old litter. Wash the feeders and drinkers. Sweep the entire house. Then disinfect it properly before bringing in another flock. This helps reduce the number of disease-causing organisms that may still be present from the previous flock. Another thing I recommend is giving the house a little time after disinfection. Don't disinfect today and bring birds tomorrow if you can avoid it. Allow the house to dry properly because disinfectants work much better when they're used correctly. Now let's talk about visitors. When people hear that you've started a poultry farm, everyone suddenly wants to come and see it. Friends, neighbors, relatives, even people who have never visited you before. There's nothing wrong with people being interested in your farm, but not everyone needs to enter the poultry house. Every person walking into that house could be carrying bacteria or viruses on their shoes, clothes, or even their hands. Some may have visited another poultry farm earlier that day without even thinking about it. That's how diseases move from one farm to another. So from the very beginning, Get into the habit of limiting unnecessary visitors. If someone doesn't need to enter the poultry house, let them admire the birds from outside. If they do need to enter, make sure they follow your farm's hygiene procedures. Another thing beginners sometimes forget is farm equipment. If possible, avoid borrowing feeders, drinkers, crates, or other equipment from neighboring farms. It may save you money today, but it can also bring diseases onto your farm. If you absolutely have to borrow something, clean and disinfect it thoroughly before using it. The same applies to vehicles. If a truck has been transporting chickens from different farms all week, think carefully before allowing it to drive right up to your poultry house. Simple habits like these make a big difference over time. Let's also talk about wild birds and rodents. They may look harmless, but they can create a lot of problems. Wild birds can carry diseases without showing obvious signs. Rodents eat your feed, contaminate it with droppings and urine, damage feed bags, and multiply very quickly if they are not controlled. That's why feed should always be stored properly, and any holes where rats can enter should be sealed as early as possible. Another habit that will save you a lot of trouble is removing dead birds immediately. Never leave a dead bird inside the poultry house. As soon as you notice one, remove it, determine the possible cause if you can, and dispose of it properly according to the recommendations in your area. Leaving dead birds lying around only increases the risk of disease spreading to the rest of the flock. The important thing to understand is that biosecurity isn't one big action you do once. It's a collection of small habits: cleaning equipment, changing litter when necessary, keeping visitors under control, protecting feed, maintaining a clean environment. None of these things take a lot of time individually, but together they make your farm much safer. And honestly, that's one thing I've noticed about successful poultry farmers. They don't wait until disease appears before they become serious about hygiene. They build those habits from the very first flock, and those habits stay with them as the business grows. We've covered a lot in this episode, but before you order your chicks, there's one last thing I'd like you to do. Walk through your poultry house one more time, not as the owner. Walk through it as if you're inspecting someone else's farm. It's amazing how many small problems you notice when you do that. Start with the water. Turn on every drinker and make sure water is flowing properly. Check for leaks because even a small leak can make the litter wet over time. Next, look at your feeders. Do you have enough for the number of birds you're bringing in? Are they clean? Have you placed them where birds will be able to reach them easily? If you're expecting day-old chicks, test your heat source again. What happens if the power goes off? In some areas, power outages are rare. In others, they're part of daily life. If you know electricity isn't reliable where you are, it's worth thinking about a backup heat source before the chicks arrive rather than trying to find one in the middle of the night. Now have a look at the litter. Is it dry? Is it spread evenly? Does it cover the entire floor? Remember, your chicks are going to spend their first days on that litter, so this isn't something you want to rush. Then check your feed. Don't wait until the chicks arrive before you start looking for feed suppliers. Have enough feed on the farm before the birds come in. The last thing you want is to bring home healthy chicks and then start calling around asking where to buy feed. As you walk around the house, pay attention to small details. Are there any sharp objects the birds could injure themselves on? Are there gaps where predators like rats or snakes could get in? Do the doors close properly? Can rain blow into the house if the weather changes? These things might seem minor today, but once the birds are inside, they become much more difficult to fix. Now the house is ready. The equipment is in place. You've planned your business and you've prepared the farm. The next step is bringing in the chicks. Those first few days are the most critical in the life of every flock. The way you manage your chicks during that period has a huge influence on how they'll perform throughout the rest of the production cycle. That's exactly what we'll cover in the next episode. If you found this video helpful, please give it a like, subscribe, and turn on notifications so you don't miss the next episode. I'll see you in episode 4.